Hello and welcome to KLM Institute.
Today, we have an important topic to discuss, one that impacts economies across the world, especially in countries like India and China. It's a concept that many nations, including emerging economies, are trying to overcome: the middle income trap. According to a new World Bank report, India and China are at risk of falling into this trap if they don't make significant policy changes. So, let's dive deep into what this means for both countries and what measures they can adopt to avoid being stuck in the middle income trap. The World Bank's recent report highlights a serious warning for developing economies, including China, India, Brazil, and South Africa, that face critical obstacles preventing them from progressing to high-income status. This is what's known as the middle income trap. In simple terms, the middle income trap occurs when a country's economy grows and becomes relatively wealthier, but then it stagnates and cannot break through to the high-income status level. For countries like India, the risk is even higher. The World Bank suggests that, under current trends, it would take India 75 years to reach a quarter of the per capita income of the United States. For China, it could take over 10 years. This report has raised an important point for both nations: they must take urgent and strategic action to avoid being stuck in the middle. As India sets a target to become a developed nation by 2047, China and several other middle-income countries are also setting ambitious goals to raise their per capita incomes. However, the journey towards becoming a high-income country is not as straightforward as it might seem. Now, what exactly is the middle income trap? Let's take a step back. The World Bank explains that this trap occurs when a country's economic growth slows down as it reaches about 10% of the United States GDP per person, which is around $8,000 today. This is the threshold where many developing economies get stuck. They reach a certain level of prosperity but struggle to continue growing at a rapid pace due to a lack of innovation, a failure to adopt new technologies, or inefficient policies. Since 1990, only 34 middle-income countries managed to transition to high-income status. Many of these countries, like those in Europe, were either beneficiaries of the European Union integration or had access to previously undiscovered oil. India and China are especially vulnerable to this middle-income trap. So, what can these two nations do to avoid falling into it? The World Bank offers a solution in the form of a 3I strategy. This strategy is designed to help countries transition from low-income to high-income status by focusing on investment, infusion of technology, and innovation at different stages of their economic growth. The 3I strategy is divided into 3 stages. 1. Investment 1I phase. Low-income countries, like India in its early stages, need to focus on boosting investments, particularly in infrastructure, education, and healthcare. Without proper investment in these areas, it's nearly impossible for a country to transition to a higher income level. 2. Investment and infusion 2I phase. Once a country reaches lower middle income status, it's time to shift gears. At this stage, countries need to focus on the infusion of new technologies from abroad and spread them across different sectors of their economy. It's crucial for a country to not just import technology but also to adapt and apply it effectively to fuel growth. 3. Investment, infusion, and innovation 3I phase. The final phase is when a country has reached an upper middle income status. At this stage, it's not enough to merely adopt technology. Countries must push the frontiers of innovation. This is the stage where countries like South Korea, Japan, and the United States are currently operating. India and China must work towards this phase by fostering homegrown innovations that can compete globally. However, the report also highlights the fact that more than 100 countries, including India and China, face serious challenges in overcoming the middle income trap. So, What are the key measures these nations must adopt? Let's break it down. India and China need to focus on both fiscal and monetary policies to overcome these challenges. Let's start with fiscal policy. In India, the government needs to increase investments in human capital, such as improving education, healthcare, and skill development. It should also enhance infrastructure and ease of doing business to attract foreign investments. China, on the other hand, should focus on reducing its reliance on export-driven growth and shift towards a more consumption-driven economy. This will help boost domestic demand, leading to higher incomes and better job creation. Monetary policy also plays a critical role. India should continue with its efforts to maintain price stability, which is crucial for sustainable growth. The Reserve Bank of India needs to ensure that inflation remains under control while providing the necessary liquidity for businesses to grow. For China, the People's Bank of China should focus on gradually moving towards more market-driven interest rates, while also supporting innovation and technological development in key sectors like green energy and AI. Lorenz curve. Another important tool to understand how economic inequalities affect a country's growth is the Lorenz curve. The Lorenz curve is a graphical representation of income or wealth distribution. It helps show the proportion of total income earned by different segments of the population. The more unequal the distribution, the further the Lorenz curve is from the diagonal line, which represents perfect equality. This curve is useful because it highlights how income inequality in a country can be an obstacle to growth. Countries with high levels of inequality often struggle with social unrest, lack of access to quality education, and poor health outcomes, all of which limit the potential for economic advancement. India and China must focus on reducing income inequality through effective policies. Improving access to education, creating a more inclusive labor market, and ensuring equal opportunities for all sections of society can help these nations grow more equitably. Now, let's talk about some other essential aspects. India and China must focus on education and skills development. It's clear that innovation and technology adoption are key drivers of growth, and to compete on the global stage, both countries need to produce a workforce that is well equipped with advanced skills. Investing in research and development (R&D) and encouraging entrepreneurship will create an ecosystem of innovation that will enable both nations to push their economic frontiers. Another significant measure both countries can adopt is economic diversification. Relying on a few sectors like manufacturing or agriculture for growth can be risky in the long run. Both India and China should focus on diversifying their economies into areas like technology, services, renewable energy, and digital industries. This will not only create new jobs but will also help in building a more sustainable growth model. While India and China face significant challenges in avoiding the middle-income trap, they are not without solutions. By focusing on investment, technology adoption, innovation, and reducing income inequality, both countries can rise to high income status. The journey is complex and requires careful planning and execution, but with the right policies and strategies, both nations can overcome the obstacles in their path.